Hello and welcome to wrestling and welcome to the pay-per-view post-mortem for WWE Super Showdown 2019, which was held in Saudi Arabia, as it's been sort of well covered, the dodgy dealings that WWE has with Saudi and all the people that couldn't go to the show, as in Sami Zayn, and apparently Aleister Black because of a tattoo he has or something, and supposedly they tried to get a ladies match on the card, but it was shot down, so it was pretty much boys club again. Renee was there though, again, which was good to see. And throughout the night they kept telling us how warm it was. Apparently it was like 45 degrees. Crazy hot to be wrestling out in that. But let's get into it. To be honest, it wasn't the best show. It was pretty average. Nothing really sort of grabbed you. But it was kind of to be expected. As we've said previously on these videos, these shows are kind of like glorified house shows. But they get pyro, which is good. Of course, we're missing Adam again today. We didn't do predictions. We didn't do a predictions video because, as I've said in previous videos, Adam is poorly or has been poorly, can't really talk. I think he's on the mend now, but yeah, we thought we'd sort of take a little rest. So let's get into it and let's talk about the first match, which was in the pre-show, and it was the Usos versus the Revival. Two of the best tag teams in WWE right now, although the Revival have obviously been not dealt with very well, let's say, on main roster. So, a pre-show match between two of the best tag teams. You'd expect it to be a good start, and it was with about 12 minutes left until the main show kicked off, so you kind of thought, oh, it's going to be a fast-paced match. And it was okay. There was not a lot to talk about really in it. Sort of felt like a standard match. The Usos did score a pinfall of about 5, which Corey was counting it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the ref's back was turned. He was distracted by the other member of the Revival. I can't remember which one it was. So good heel stuff from Revival. Usos should have won there. The match continued, and eventually they did pick up the win after a whole lot of super kicks. So we move on to the main show, and it starts with Seth Rollins again. Of course, he started WrestleMania, and they were selling this one as equivalent to, if not better than WrestleMania, which I don't think is something you should really be saying when WrestleMania is your top show. It's a bit weird for them to say that. But yeah, he was against Baron Corbin, which just... Why? Why is Baron Corbin in this position? Here on Welcome to Wrestling, we do quite like Baron Corbin. We think, he's got a good moveset. He's not the best guy in the ring, but he's not the worst. But he shouldn't really be in this position, getting to do like the main event stuff. But anyway, it was an okay match because Corbin worked Seth's ribs, which had been sort of damaged from Brock Lesnar on Raw. So they were all taped up. So there was a nice bit of sort of storytelling going on there. He was working the ribs, and Corbin had the upper hand for nearly all of the match, to be honest. Lots of near falls, and eventually Corbin got really mad about the ref not counting to 3, basically. So he was up in his face, he was shouting at the ref, and the ref sort of got back up in his face, sort of, stood up to Baron Corbin, and this gave a bit of a distraction, and Seth managed to win via a roll-up. The roll-up is the most over move in WWE. If you've been watching the 24/7 stuff, you'll know what I'm on about. Anyway, Corbin's fuming about this. He hits an end of days, and then Lesnar's music hits. He'd been teeing up to this. He'd said he was going to do the cash-in on Friday, and his music hits, and he comes down to the ring. I think he had a chair in hand at this point. Yeah, he did. He did have a chair, because Corbin had brought a chair in as well into the ring earlier on. So he comes in, and as they're getting in the ring, Heyman slips, which causes Brock to be distracted. Seth manages to get hold of the chair. He takes advantage. Chair shots for days, sort of like a flip side of what had happened on Monday Night Raw. And then he stomps Brock onto the briefcase, which was a really cool visual. So no cash in. The bell didn't ring, so Brock still got the opportunity, which led me to think he's going to cash in later on in the show. But we'll get to that. Following this was the Demon versus Andrade. Decent match again, but like everything else, kind of felt by the numbers. As I mentioned, I don't know if it was because of the heat that a lot of the guys were wrestling a slower pace. By the way, I didn't mention Corbin was wrestling in his full like shirt and trouser get up. Oh my god, he must have been sweltering. Anyway, so yeah, the Demon comes out. Finn is in his paint. His magical powers that he gets from his paint. Doesn't really wrestle in a different style, which is a little bit of a bugbear with me. I wish he would be more like heelish or more aggressive. He kind of does like the grunting and stuff like that, and that gets that idea over, I guess. But I don't know. He got a really interesting entrance, like kind of made it snow and stuff like that. Yeah, didn't quite get that, but it was cool. Anyway, so Finn picks up the win via the coup de grace. So his powers remain intact. I don't think he's ever lost as the Demon. Following this, we got Roman Reigns versus Shane McMahon, which we all assumed was an easy win for Roman Reigns, but of course Shane is being backed up by Drew McIntyre. But he didn't really have an awful lot to do in the match. Shane just was like dominating, which just is so bizarre. You've got this... The whole point of this best in the world thing is like, he isn't. So he's got to have backup to then be like this annoying heel saying he's the best in the world. But in this match, he just looked like a really good wrestler. He was out wrestling Roman Reigns, who you've built up to be your top guy for like 3-4 years. It was weird. It was weird booking. Like I said, Drew didn't have an awful lot to do in it, but he did have a lot to do with the end. So the ref took an interesting bump, I think, off the Superman punch. Shane sort of fell into the ref. And then Drew got in the ring and hit the Claymore, which Shane then fell onto Roman Reigns, similar to like how he's won previous matches against The Miz, which kind of plays into what I was saying about, you know, he's not the best in the world, but he's managing to get these wins. And he gets a pin win. Okay, it's not a clean win, but he gets a win over Roman Reigns. So weird. Didn't think we'd be saying this. And he's on a winning streak. Shane McMahon is on a winning streak. Following this, we got Lars and the Lucha House Party, and the crowd went silent. I don't know if they just don't know these guys. They were popping for, obviously, all the legends and the guys that they know, like Roman Reigns, but things like this, he was just going dead. So Lars is beating them down, and eventually the Lucha House Party have to break the rules, and all three of them get in and start beating down on Lars. But I think he came out on top. I can't quite remember, to be honest. It was a little bit, one of them that I think I switched off at. Following on from this, we get Triple H and Randy Orton, and Triple H is doing his big, bad motorbike entrance. He comes out on that big thing. He loves an entrance, doesn't he? But for as ridiculous as it is, it's good. It makes a show of it, and the crowd are really into it. But why do Triple H matches have to be so long in 2019? Dude's 50. It was a slow match, headlocks, rest holds, those annoying reversals of the RKO, which I hate. People that watch this channel will know I'm not a fan of the RKO reversal. It looks so bad. I just wouldn't do it. But then at the end, there was a couple of false finishes off an RKO and then off a pedigree, and that was good. That really hooked you in. But this match just didn't need to be this long. Just have a 10-minute match. Randy wins off a RKO out of nowhere, which, probably the right decision. But this was where I lost the predictions contest, and Adam retained, because at this point I could only draw. So he still has that trophy of ours. I'm going to get it back one day. Next we got Bobby Lashley versus Braun Strowman. Another Raw match, if we're being honest. Not something that you particularly want to see on pay-per-view. Test of strength between two strong men. A lot of that going on. But eventually Braun wins via his power slams. Not much more to say about this match. But nice to see Braun picking up the win. Kofi versus Ziggler for the WWE Championship. And this one was okay as well. I quite like this one. Ziggler's a good worker. Obviously, Kofi's a great worker as well. And the main points of this match were that Ziggler was outside the ring with Kofi, and Woods sort of came to Kofi's aid, and Ziggler super kicked him, which led to something like interesting in the match, but weird booking again, that Woods did a step-up enziguri when the ref was distracted that helped Kofi, and it was kind of heelish. It's kind of something you'd expect from a heel team, and of course Kofi and Woods and the New Day are at the minute face team and have been for a long time. So that was weird. This then led into Kofi hitting a Trouble in Paradise and winning the match. So backstage, Ziggler said, I want Kofi one-on-one. I want him in a steel cage at Stomping Grounds. Yeah, strange setup. And I was expecting Brock to cash in here because he'd had the false or the failed cash in earlier on in the night. I really did expect him to come and cash in on Kofi. But it didn't happen. And I'm kind of glad it didn't. But that's going to rock on and roll on into the future. Then we had the 50-man Battle Royale. Oh, this wasn't good, was it? This was not good. It was just a mess, really. Absolute carnage in the ring. They had all 50 men in the ring because it was a Battle Royale. Miz, Cesaro, Apollo, and Titus got entrances. There might have been someone else. I think Elias got an entrance, didn't he? He did a little sing-song that was quite good, to be fair. Of course, Titus only really got his entrance to play on the Greatest Royal Rumble thing where he slipped under the ring. And later on in the match, he was hidden under the ring as well at one point. Yeah, so the match wasn't great. Of course, I can't really reel off all the people that got eliminated. EC3 went early, which... what is the point in EC3 being on main roster? Yeah, it was won by Mansoor, who was the local lad. The sort of enhancement talent from... Was he there at Greatest Royal Rumble? Was he one of the guys? I think he was. Anyway, he won the match, which, you know, to us WWE fans was kind of like, don't really know who the guy is. I don't know. I think he might be on 205 Live. But it was amazing for the Saudi crowd. They were loving it. There was a big pop for it. And to be fair to the guy, he cut a really good promo after. So that was nice to see. And a nice feel-good moment from the night. And now we get to the main event. Oh boy, was this sad to watch. Let's get the positives out of the way, though, to start with, because there was some positives. Both entrances still get you hyped, don't they? They still reel you in. Goldberg with his long walk. Although, I must admit, I think he got lost because it took ages for him to get to the ramp. That kind of did take away from it a little bit. But when he appeared, he did have a little spot on his head here. And it sounded like he'd headbutted something, which apparently Goldberg does do to get himself hyped. He headbutts walls and doors, and it sounded like he did do that. But then I don't know if that was something to do with what happened later on in the match. But we'll get to that. Taker, oh, his entrance, wow! It still gets you like goosebumps, doesn't it? It still really does just get you that long walk down to the ring. And of course, they had druids this time coming out with the fire sticks. It was bigger and badder than before. So the match started well for me. It started how I thought it should. Because these are two 50-year-old men. I think Taker's 54. So you're thinking, this doesn't need to be long. It doesn't have to be long. Goldberg never really looked good from long matches anyway in his career. And yeah, my thing was it should have just been spear, maybe a jackhammer, then a kick out and a sit-up from Taker, choke slam, and a tombstone and a finish. That's what it should have been for me. And he started kind of that way. There was two spears and then the sit-up from Undertaker. And it was looking like, yeah, it's going to be the greatest hits. And I was fine with that, but then Goldberg locked in a leg, was it a knee bar? I think it was a knee bar. And then I was like, oh no, they're going to try and go longer than 5 minutes. I don't actually know what it ended up being. I'm going to look that up now. So it was 9 minutes apparently, which was too long. That's too long. It should have been about 5. Well, not even 5. It should have been like 3. It should have been like what Brock and Goldberg did back in Survivor Series. That was great, you know, all finishes, and it was over within, what was it, 1 minute? It should have been something similar. I mean, I know that's not really what you want to see from your main event, but these guys are both in their 50s. Anyway, so then they tried to go longer, and Goldberg hit the ring post following another attempted spear, which bust him open. Now, I think that might have been why he had headbutted something earlier on, but then Goldberg did kind of look concussed. I don't know, I don't really know what was going on. There was blood, and you know my opinions on blood in WWE, or in wrestling in general. Adam loves it, he thinks it adds to matches. I don't really need it. And then we got a tombstone which was botched, and Goldberg got dropped on his head, and it looked nasty, and you don't want to see it, because these are two guys that were like, you know, Goldberg was never particularly a great wrestler, but they were two of the top guys in their respected companies and at WWE at times. Yeah, he got dropped on his head. That was nasty, and you're thinking, oh my god, they're going to kill each other. Adam texted me saying somebody's going to die. Yeah, it wasn't good. And then Goldberg went for a jackhammer and he dropped Taker on his neck, and you're thinking, no, what's going on? It was just sad to watch. It was just awful. You don't want to see this. And then I think Taker went for another tombstone, but he kind of didn't get all of it. He kind of dropped Goldberg midway through, and yeah, it wasn't good. Taker went for a choke slam. The choke slam didn't look good. That he sort of dropped him. And then they finished. And you could see visibly that Undertaker was not happy about this match. He was very, very angry. He looked pissed off. Yeah, not a good ending. We don't want to see that. Undertaker, just stop wrestling. You're tarnishing your legacy now. Whether or not it was his fault or whether or not it was Goldberg's fault, we don't need it. It was perfect for the way that he retired at WrestleMania with Roman Reigns. And it's kind of sad to see that he's come back, and now this is the sort of thing that we're getting. So that is Super Showdown from Saudi Arabia. What did you guys think? I didn't think it was that good. It was better than Crown Jewel. Crown Jewel was an absolute despicable show, in my opinion. It was awful. I think I rated that one 2 out of 10, maybe 3. This one, I think, was an average show. I think you can get away with saying maybe 4, maybe 5 out of 10. There was some matches that were okay, but they never really sort of lifted to pay-per-view level. They did feel very like raw or house showy, but it wasn't as bad as Crown Jewel. So that's my opinions on WWE Super Showdown from Saudi Arabia. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and we will see you in the next video.